So Star Wars Celebration is just getting closer and closer with each and every month passing by. A lot of fans are getting ramped up for the series of announcements that Disney and Lucasfilm are really preparing and working on behind the scenes to really make sure that their presentation is going to be top-notch. That's really going to create a lot of hype and a lot of excitement for the future of the Star Wars universe at hand. This is Mike Zero. Make sure to subscribe if you are new to the channel for future Star Wars updates. Also, by the way guys, make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel. I thank you all so very much for the kind support. It is greatly appreciated. Now, there are a lot of things happening over at Lucasfilm. Specifically, of course, we have Kathleen Kennedy on her way out over at Lucasfilm. Bob Iger and the higher-ups over at Disney are already formulating a plan to getting her kicked out of Lucasfilm and replacing her with somebody else, such as Ron Howard is at the top of the list, with David Heyman being used as the backup scenario, essentially. So we talked about that already. But one thing that is very controversial, at least to me, is what Kathleen Kennedy recently had to say again about the Star Wars fans, about the community, and just how the fandom works, and how they view Star Wars, and how it's all connected back to George Lucas. She doesn't really seem to like that all that much. And she made that ultimately very clear when she was actually being questioned about the Acolyte and Skeleton Crew, which, by the way, those two projects, they are moving along smoothly right now, after so many setbacks and reshoots for the Acolyte, and of course, rewrites as well. They're finally getting back on their A-game with that show. I'm still not excited for it because it is a Kathleen Kennedy-led project. I'm just saying the truth here. But moving on, alright? Where we are and where we stand today is, of course, the most important time because we have a lot of TV shows that are looming just a couple of months out. Now, with Kathleen Kennedy now focused on developing both the Acolyte and Skeleton Crew with getting those shows out on time as scheduled, she recently got involved in an interview where she talked about the franchise and her, of course, overall projects and went on to say something controversial about the fandom. Now, Kennedy went on to state the following: "Well, I look at the fandom like this. They tend to be very self-absorbed with their wants and needs for the Star Wars franchise, and don't really have a care in the world about our creators and what they go through to put out these stories." That's actually false. We actually do care as long as they put out positive stuff. Look at John and Dave, right? Moving on. This is a community, she says, in which they believe we must always follow George's outlook on Star Wars, which is something that we are trying to detach from, and to just move on with these two great shows that we have in the works. I can say that George wanted to be a part of those projects because he had some creative issues with our direction when we told him about the plot for each installment, and we just couldn't cater to George coming back for those because that would only give fans the wrong idea that we don't want to move on from George. So once again, Kathleen Kennedy is just admitting here that she wants nothing to do with George Lucas in her Star Wars projects. And by the way, we talked about this too about a couple of weeks ago, that both George and Kathleen Kennedy, surprisingly, initially agreed and really came to some form of acceptance about what was going to be used in the Acolyte show itself. And basically, Kathleen Kennedy broke her promises with George. She backstabbed him again and really just betrayed the guy. You know, completely undid a lot of his concepts and ideas that he put in there, or even some of the ideas that Kathleen Kennedy pitched to George Lucas that she endorsed, or that he endorsed, that were completely reversed and just cancelled and written out. Now, the thing about that is that this is just what seems to be in Kathleen Kennedy's nature. Making promises, breaking promises. It's just a vicious cycle, you know? We've seen this happen with many creative differences, with creators, with prematurely announcing certain projects that never meet their, reality, of course. We've seen this over and over again. And Kathleen Kennedy, really, it's not all that surprising that she wants nothing to do with George, because it's pretty much as clear as day that there is some kind of agenda in her mind when it comes to Star Wars, because she's openly saying that she wants nothing to do with George for Skeleton Crew and the Acolyte, so to speak. So, moving on to the next thing here that's very important that I think a lot of fans need to be aware of is that the Acolyte is described to be a show that's going to have endless retcons toward the prequels. That's another thing that really makes me a bit worried about these new prequel trilogy movies, or these new, I should say, Star Wars shows that are connected to the prequel trilogy movies in some way, shape, or form. And the Acolyte is going to have connections to the prequels. Leslie Headland said that. So, these retcons, it really is keeping a lot of fans on edge on what that really means. You know, what kind of things are they going to change in the Acolyte? You know, what kind of, changes are coming our way? Are they going to be drastic or minor? We're not quite sure just yet. We will be learning more about that down the road, and stay tuned because we will be talking about that. But overall, the next thing that I do want to actually dive into here real quick is she goes on to say the following. Our vision between myself, Leslie, and John Watts, the creator of Skeleton Crew, is to create new fans and not focus on much of the old fans that grew up with the prequels and originals. We are thankful to have established new fans with the sequel trilogy movies that has learned to enjoy our new direction of this brand that we are so thankful to take care of right now. We are about to wrap Skeleton Crew in a short time from now, and Acolyte is just getting started for us. About John Watts, alright? This is the guy that made the Disney Spider-Man films, and he's a very close friend of Jon Favreau, so let's just make that clear. And it kind of created a very tough situation between John and John, because they're friends, they know each other very well, and Watts took the offer that Kathleen Kennedy supplied him for Skeleton Crew. And Skeleton Crew, by the way, is said to be Stranger Things in space. It's basically said to be a complete rip-off and copy of Stranger Things, just with the Star Wars label on it. It's the same exact type of scenario. And that, I think, is one thing that might rub fans of both franchises the wrong way. Fans of Stranger Things might see that as very snaky and low. Star Wars fans might see this as very unoriginal and flat out just boring. We'll have to wait and see. Of course, I am not here to judge. I have not seen a shred of footage, but from the concept art and the storyboard descriptions that we have been going over for both of those shows, it's really seeming like that those shows are going to be like a roll of the dice. It could go either way, It really all depends. So, obviously Kathleen Kennedy putting it out there again that she wants to shift away from the old fans and calling the fans self-absorbed for basically being passionate and wanting something more catered to George Lucas's vision, I think is a very bad PR move. And no wonder why Bob Iger and the higher-ups over at Disney told Kathleen Kennedy to stay quiet more and to not prematurely announce anything and to not get too personal with the fans and to also, just keep things down. Just stay quiet. Now, obviously, this is getting out of hand. It's getting to a point in time where fans are just getting, fatigued about Kathleen Kennedy's nonsense here. So, overall, guys, drop a comment below. Let me know what you guys have to say about all this below in the comments, and if you guys did enjoy the content for today, make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel. I thank you all so very much for the kind support, and I'll catch you guys next time.